According to this, the average rent of a one-bedroom apartment in Halifax has gone up around 44% in the past 2 years. Alright, this is strange. I've never been in this position for a long time, but I'm looking for an apartment in Halifax. When I first moved to Halifax, it was about 5 years ago, and I was just entering university. I was going to do my journalism degree. I remember we were looking for places, and things have changed rapidly since then. In just the past 5 years, not only has Halifax changed as a city, as a landscape, but it's also changed in terms of housing cost. Things are more expensive now. So I kind of want to go over, some of the prices, what I'm seeing, and jump right into looking at places online before we even go there. Now, mind you, the vacancy rate in Halifax is very low. The ideal vacancy rate, so open apartments to rent for a city, generally in Canada is around 3%. Now, Halifax is about half of that, sitting at around 1.6% last time I checked, and it could be even lower now. What this does is create an apartment crunch because people are looking to get apartments to secure them. You have students who need to go to school there, often coming in internationally with a little bit of money. And then you have the rising cost of apartments, but it's about much more than that. A huge part of why things are so expensive in Halifax is also due to the zoning. All these new properties that are coming up in Halifax and that are being okayed are being developed in the core of Halifax, in the city center. So not only are they new, and the developers have to make back their costs by charging premium prices for premium apartments, but it's also happening in the core of Halifax, which further justifies the cost because getting in the center of the city is going to be competitive. If we were to have more multi-unit complexes, more townhouses, more buildings that were kind of mid-range, not really catering to that downtown metropolitan lifestyle, and if those were to be built outside of the city, or more in the north end, or further out into the west end and towards the Armdale region, with the goal of building profitable but affordable housing. So basically there's an affordable apartment and affordable housing crisis due to a bunch of different factors I'm not going to name, but I've been spending the last few weeks reading a ton about the city, about reading the news. With that being said, let's look at the rise of apartment costs in Halifax over the past few years. Okay, let's look at the rising costs of rentals over time because I think it's pretty crazy. And I think something needs to be done about this, particularly on the municipal level. So here's the rent trend data in Halifax, Nova Scotia. So in May 2018, the average rent for an apartment in Halifax is $16.44, which is a 7.18% increase from last year. That 7%, 8% figure sounds about right. One-bedroom apartments in Halifax rent for $15.10. Yeah, generally $1,500 is probably going to be the average price you're going to be paying if you want a good apartment. Just a modern, clean, spacious enough. We're looking 400 to 600 square feet, 650, maybe 750. You can maybe even get up to 1,000 square feet with that if you really look hard. But then again, when I see that increase, I see the quality of the apartment go down. So we're not talking about anything super luxurious here. We're talking about a pretty nice one bedroom. I've also seen it go lower. I've seen one bedrooms go as low as 1,000. I've seen single rooms, like getting a roommate with friends, or one person, go as low as $750 for each person, as low as $600 for each person. But generally, when you're looking at a one bedroom, you're gonna probably need to budget it to be comfortable between $1,100 and $1,500. So it's not cheap, right? You couldn't work part-time. So I found a recent rent trends map from April 27th of 2019. Since then, it's gone up even more. But let's look at this. According to this, the average rent of a one-bedroom apartment in Halifax has gone up around 44% in the past 2 years. Now, this number may be getting skewed by the fact that a lot of people are leasing several apartments and then leaving them empty, which is causing that vacancy rate. It's more competitive, it's more expensive. Another thing could also be the new developments that are coming in, that they're charging high prices. I think the municipality should place focus on developers that are going to come in and create super affordable housing to drive the competition of the market up. More units. We should place priority on having more units for those buildings, having those buildings in strategic lower cost areas, but still, you know, around the peninsula, building up that West End, but then keeping the prices as low as possible to avoid things like gentrification. So I think that's going to come down to developers being very strategic about their value proposition to Halifax, but that's also going to come down to Halifax City Council and Halifax as a whole to take the goal to strategically negotiate for their constituents, to be much more choosy about who they allow develop in the city. Yes, the skyline is important. We don't want we don't want buildings that are too tall. We don't want buildings in places that are going to cause disruption. We want to be mindful of those things. But what we want is the city to be affordable. I think we need to create a strong 10-year plan. We need to be long-sighted here and create a plan over a decade to bring down the cost of housing very deliberately. And even if it doesn't have that effect, at least it's going to keep it where it is, because it shouldn't move any higher. An increase in 44% over the last 2 years. I mean, I'm pulling up trends maps from websites like rentals.ca and PadMapper. So obviously these aren't perfect statistics, but clearly there's been over a 6 or 7% increase every single year. I think anything over a 3% increase is way too much. I think an increase that's anything above slightly marginal is ridiculous. So my point here isn't the actual numbers. My point here is it's just simply expensive, and it's expensive for these reasons. If I missed anything, let me know in the comment section down below. Why do you think rent is so expensive in Halifax, and how can we change this? How can we, or if you're an expert on housing or real estate or market prices, please let me know, because this is really bad, and I want to find a way to be a good citizen and talk about these things and make rent more affordable for people in Halifax. That's what we need to do, because people are moving here for opportunity, and if we don't control this, if we're not responsible, it's going to get totally out of hand. When we don't have basic necessities like food, shelter, a roof over our head, everything goes to shit.